dancing robots celebrating in China.
DeepSeek's R1 and V3 models, $1 trillion market cap, wiped out for a day on the US stock market. A lot of the uproar this week was around this $6 million figure to train this model. This also felt like it was taken way out of context.
Can AI tutors redefine the future of education by doubling student engagement and learning gains?
Meta AI introducing personalized assistance.
ChatGPT launched ChatGPT Gov. It's a more secured, more locked down version since 2024. More than 90,000 users in over 3,500 federal, state, and local government agencies have sent over 18 million messages in ChatGPT. Los Alamos National Lab, they actually have a supercomputer, the NATO supercomputer, that will also be powered by AI.
Jack Dorsey's block just released Goose, on-machine local AI agent targeting engineering tasks.
U.S. Copyright Office, they have ruled that AI-assisted works can be copyrighted only if they can showcase enough human creativity in the process.
Welcome back to What the AI, where we decode the latest developments in the world of artificial intelligence. I'm Jeff Keltner.
And I'm Annie Delgado.
Annie, how's your week going?
It's going pretty well, Jeff. How's your week going?
It's going pretty well. You know, this week was Chinese New Year.
Happy New Year.
Is proudly Chinese, so I had to learn new phrases in Chinese. So
You did? How'd that go?
About as well as my attempts to learn Chinese over the last decade have gone. Fits and starts and poor pronunciation.
Okay,
But apparently
well,
you can
what
say
you got?
Happy New Year with the Xinyan Kuai. And my favorite, which is sort of wishing you prosperity, but the comedy is something that really just means hope you get rich. So it's a gong xi fa zai. Hope you get rich. So Annie, gong xi fa zai.
Well, I appreciate that. I hope I get rich too. I
I
appreciate
think
the
that's
sentiment.
hysterical that that's a greeting. That it kind of cracked me up that's like we say Happy New Year and they're like, good luck with the money this year.
I think that that's very practical and actionable,
Mhm.
wishes to bring on somebody. So I think that's a good one. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking of Chinese New Year, and I assume you guys did some good things to celebrate, but did you watch any of the videos of dancing robots celebrating in China?
I saw these. This was pretty cool. I had to send to my mother-in-law, so I get like a few good son-in-law brownie points for watching Chinese New Year celebrations on YouTube or whatever. This is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. The video is amazing. I saw this headline about the dancing robots, and then it was funny because when the video first started, it starts with actually dancing humans, and I thought, dang, those robots are very realistic. I was like so impressed. But then the
Facial
actual
expressions, the whole thing, and then
Yes, but then the robots came out, and then they actually looked like robots. But you know what? They had some dance moves.
so are you going to connect this to AI for us? What the AI, not what the robots? Is this an AI topic or not really?
I mean, it is an AI topic, right? They were actually powered by AI. These weren't like remote control operated robots. They were Unitree H1 was the name of the model, and they were AI driven full body motion control. There was like a pretty good range of motion compared to what we've seen with other humanoid devices in the past, and literally executing a dance, a cultural dance. They were named from like an ancient Chinese tradition or figure, and it was a pretty cool sort of intersection of the celebration between technology and human creativity. I thought it was a really neat thing.
I enjoyed it, and they had the robots and the human dancers out there at the same time for a while. So I was doing a little like, who's better, who's worse? And the robots, I remember at one point had a little advantage because they were spinning something in a circle, and they had just like a perfect little spinning motor. And the humans had to they got a wrist that doesn't just spin 360 as many times as you want. So they had to adapt, and it was like a little cheating there on the robots, not fully human, but it was very cool.
Well, last week we were speculating about whether robots would be good judgers of human creativity, but maybe they'll be participants in future
Maybe
X
humans
Games.
will judge robot dancing competitions and X Games in the future, which
That
I
would
gotta
be a
say, when I
plot
watch the
twist.
Boston Robotics videos, I wouldn't mind being a judge for some of that stuff. It's pretty cool looking.
It is pretty cool. Yeah.
While we're talking about China, I know we talked about DeepSeek last week, but then on Monday, $1 trillion market cap wiped out for a day on the US stock market. And it seems like nobody in AI has talked about anything for the last week but DeepSeek's R1 and V3 models. So I feel like we're gonna have to talk DeepSeek here for at least a minute.
I think that that's right. It dominated the news cycle this week for sure. So we talked about it last week. Obviously, a lot more has sort of come out. People have been putting out their various thoughts and opinions. Any new updates that you would want to share or new thinking that you've had since everything has been released?
I feel good on our takes, to be honest. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
if you listen to the podcast, you were probably well informed for the discussions this week, because I think we kind of got it right that, who the winners, the losers, the innovations, what's going on. I was happy. So not a lot to update.
Okay, fair enough. So let's just do a quick recap then. What were the real innovations and who are the winners and losers?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. There've been some debate now about whether these guys cheated, whether they're lying, whether there was real innovation in this or not. And I don't know. I think it's much ado about nothing in many ways. I think the innovations are real. They drove real efficiencies, and if you look at what they say they didn't have access to in terms of chips, if you look at the kinds of things they built, it's exactly what you would expect someone who didn't have access to the most capable chips to build to drive more efficiency out of their model. So, like, it makes sense, and it seems to be really innovative. Like, I would be very shocked if the models in the US aren't using many of these techniques to improve efficiency on their training in the next couple of months. So, I think the innovations are real, and interesting. I do think you gotta remember that this model is really a distillation of, some of the OpenAI models. I mean, in some places, it'll actually tell you it's ChatGPT, so it's clear that people have said, "Oh, China's leading the US now in the AI race," and it's very clear that they are leveraging the investments in the US to build this. And without a 4.0 and an O1, they don't build DeepSeek V3 or R1. So that I don't feel like there's a shifting of the guard in terms of who's leading um, on this. And then I think those were mine too. Was I think the winners are like, hey, consumers. Like, I mean, come on. AI is going to get cheaper to make and cheaper to run, and it's going to get used more places. So any enterprise developer or consumer is really winning here. I think the infrastructure providers, Google, AWS, Microsoft, anybody who houses these things is going to do well. And NVIDIA's probably going to come out fine. It does seem like maybe there's some less reliance on the latest chips, which maybe isn't great for NVIDIA. But my sense is we're going to have plenty of use for NVIDIA chips and GPUs and as many as we can get our hands on. So I'm not super worried about that. I think it's going to be good for most people, and just bad
Yeah.
for maybe OpenAI and Anthropic in terms of recouping their billions and billions of dollars of investment in building the foundation models. That it's not clear they'll be able to recoup that economic value. And I think they're the folks you should be most looking at. Not that they won't do well, but that can they recoup what they've invested, or those benefits go to people running an open source model. It's unclear.
Yeah, I feel like I saw some sort of mixed feedback coming out of Sam Altman. There was like on the one side of him saying like, "Hey, they used a bunch of our sort of infrastructure and technology to make this thing great. They just stole our content and our idea," which is a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black
Yeah, it
potentially.
felt a little rich coming from Sam. Like, "Hey, just told
Yeah.
all of our data to train their model." I said, "Well, I mean, Sam, like, how many people did you call before you trained yours? I don't know."
Yeah, exactly. So I saw that, but then I also saw, something where he was kinda like, "Hey, like, bring on the competition, like, more competition is better," and it pushes people and it sort of
Yeah.
pushes everybody, to be more forward-leaning and forward-thinking, so, a little bit of a mixed review. I gotta be honest, there's so much talk about AI accuracy and AI having
Did you stress it out?
hallucinations.
Did you go and check the accuracy of the DeepSeek models?
Well, I mean, I didn't, no, but, there's just ample evidence online because of censorship issues. There's a lot of inaccuracies coming out of this model that are literally by design, and that feels a little bit propaganda based, and I'm a little bit surprised that there's not more backlash on that. Like, we saw, like, quick, excitement about adopting this model, and I'm surprised that more people are not, upset about the level of censorship in the model.
It surprised me, the US consumer reaction in that way, and, it's similar to when TikTok was whatever status you think TikTok is in, banned, not banned. It seems to be live, but not in the app stores right now, and people ran to another Chinese TikTok-like app called, what is it called? Xiaohongshu, I think, which is literally translates to Little Red Book. I think the people have used Red Notebook or something as the name, but that's the name, and they're like, "Oh, so much more free expression." I'm like, really try talking about Tiananmen Square in there and see how freedom of expression this feels, how much you feel. So there seems to be a bit of a lack of awareness of the downsides of some of these things in the Chinese born technologies from on the behalf of at least initial run US consumers who are trying to avoid what they think of as big bag tech in terms of Google or woke ideology at OpenAI or whatever. And I think they're a little naive, maybe.
It feels that way, it feels that way.
When we talk about misinformation, I should also say that a lot of the uproar this week was around this $6 million figure to train this model. And this also felt like it was taken way out of context in the sense that that was like the cost to run the final training run. But it's nothing like the numbers you see raised in the US that are like billions of dollars. It doesn't, there's rumors they have about $1 billion worth of GPUs that they've purchased and acquired. So, like, that's real money. And that doesn't say anything about all the people they've got, all the runs that were for development, R&D, testing, trial before the final training run. So it felt like people were comparing every money NVIDIA or OpenAI has ever raised to like the final electric bill for the last training run of this model at 6 million and saying, oh, look how much better they are. That's just not really what happened. They, found a more efficient way to make a model that was about as good as the model the leaders released a year ago, which seems like what you kind of expect. So it felt like a lot of people trying to make a big deal out of this, but maybe not as much there as people hoped.
Yeah, a little bit comparing apples to oranges for sure.
Totally.
Well, Jeff, we've talked about this before, but I'm going to ask you again. Can AI tutors redefine the future of education by doubling student engagement and learning gains?
I'm going to assume the answer is yes, because you only bring these things up when they're good because we're so excited about AI and education. So
I
must
mean,
be.
I got to be honest with you. I think the answer is no, because I think it's going to more than double. I think double is too low. I think it
We're
can be better.
we're lowballing it. Okay.
We're lowballing it, yeah. So another study coming out this time from Harvard. Last week we talked about some work coming out of Nigeria, but this week work coming out of Harvard. And a professor there, Gregory Keston, and senior lecturer Kelly Miller, they did a study on a physics course revealing that using AI-based tutoring actually doubled and made much quicker the learning for the students that were involved in this study. So what they did is they took 194 students and they basically had two models, one where the students were learning on sort of traditional lecture-based methods with a instructor, and then one where they were being trained by an AI that was actually developed and designed for this purpose by the lecturers. And they found that the students using the AI were much more highly engaged and double the learnings at the end of the study period. So pretty amazing.
This was unbelievable. The thing that blew me away about this mostly, there were two things really that felt unique, and I wanted to get your take on. One, we've talked about AI tutors, but often like in Africa, learning English, in a place where there's not necessarily access to what you would think of as the best lecturers in the world with the students who have a ton of background and resource and available things. And second is this question of like, okay, they can learn, but like, are they going to pay attention? Are they going to be engaged? Are they going to like enjoy the materials? They're going to feel kind of rote and robotic. And it seems like this is at Harvard, which is a very different place than a lot of the things we've seen. Very students with lots of access to alternatives, and it not only increased learning but engagement. They were more interested in what they were learning, which is kind of unbelievable.
It is kind of unbelievable, but it also makes sense when you think about it because in the traditional learning environment, the whoever the instructor is has to teach to the middle, right? So they can't teach to the best student in the class because they'll lose everybody else. And if they teach to the lowest student in the class, then everybody else is going to be bored. So they sort of teach to the middle, which means that anybody who is like more advanced in that topic is not pushed and therefore disengages. And anybody who is a little bit further behind can't keep up, and so therefore they disengage. So you get a high amount of disengagement when you have to teach to the middle. And so this type of approach where it's super person specific and as it said, judgment free, allows people to engage right at their level, which is sort of an amazing outcome if you think about it, right? A judgment free, you can ask any questions that you need to ask. It's never going to say like, that was a dumb question. You're never going to have your peers laugh at you. And so you can literally just engage with the content that you need to in order to master the skill.
I love that. I've always said when people ask about like advice for your career, I've always thought that one of my superpowers was that I was unafraid to ask questions and look dumb in a room. Just go, hey, I know, but like I feel like everybody here should know this thing, but I don't. So like help me understand this thing you're saying because I don't understand. And the number of times people in meetings come back to me and go, thank you for asking that. I didn't understand either. And I go, why does nobody ask the question? And I never thought about that in the context of classrooms per se, but it's the same thing. If you're struggling, it's that judgment free, that sense of, oh, my teacher's not going to think I'm dumb because I asked this question to back up and understand. And you just may have like misheard something. And that's a really powerful concept for it, having a higher level of engagement and for people not falling behind because they're just embarrassed to admit that something didn't click for them the first time and maybe it'll click the second time and they'll do great. And I hadn't thought about that. That's a really interesting element, the judgment free aspect of being able to ask anything you want and nobody even remembers that you asked, let
Yeah.
alone judges you for it.
Well, and I think the other implication that is huge here that hopefully will start to play out in the education system is if you can use an AI powered, technology to teach the content and sort of give the basics of whatever the skill that is needed, then we can save the class time for this truly higher ordered like application of the skill, right? And so, in this particular use case, if you can use the AI powered information just to master the, physics elements, those sort of block and tackle things you need to know. Then when you go and get with your actual professor, you can do labs and you can do hands-on stuff that is really going to again push the needle and push the boundary of your thinking. And so I would love to see that in the come down to the sort of traditional education environment K through 12 as well because I think that same concept applies is how many times do you look at a course and it's like, read this thing and then come and hear the professor say the same thing. And then you just are consuming the same content in three different mediums, hoping that it sticks. But if you can really just consume it the first time in a way that makes it stick so that you can actually engage with it, that's a way better way to learn.
Yeah, I love this so much. And it does remind me that what I've told people about AI, and I think I stole this from Ben Thompson at Stratechery, so I don't want to try and claim
Mhm.
credit, but it just the returns to curiosity, your ability to, if you're studying a subject and you go, hey, that's really interesting. Like, why is that? Or what is this word? Or what is this idea? Or why does it work that way? And to go way beyond what was in the lesson plan because you just got, hey, this was a really like this thing resonated with me. And for every student, we always want them to have that moment where they go, hey, this is really interesting. Like, tell me more about that. And so often they don't have the resource to do that. And now you've got a tutor be like, yeah, happy to go as deep as you want on this little sub corner that you found really interesting. And I think that's how you really get students to go, hey, this is fun. This is interesting. Is engaging is the perfect word. So love it.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. For a quick palate cleanser, have you ever seen a shooting star, Annie?
I have.
How about a shooting car?
No.
So Tesla, do you remember in 2018, Tesla, as part of the Falcon Heavy test, they launched a roadster into space. Did you see this?
You know, if I saw it, I blocked it out, to be honest with you, because I forgot about it, and then when we were prepping for the podcast this week, I was like, "Why are we launching cars into space?"
We launched so they put when they were testing the Falcon Heavy, the big rocket, they put one of the Tesla Roadsters with a dummy driver, I think they called him Spaceman, and they put it into orbit just to test that they could. So, they put the and then, this year, in October, last year, sorry, astronomers, I misidentified it as a meteorite. So, we thought we had a meteorite hurtling around Earth, and it turns out it's just
It
a
was
road.
Elon.
Just
There's the
Elon doing Elon things and putting a car into orbit. Because I mean, this is what one does, but, kinda funny.
Yeah, it's like it feels like a cartoon. You have this, like, roadster just, like, racing around the world, and then our guys are like, "Is that a meteor?
What is that up there? What is that?
What is that?" So what's the AI angle here, Jeff?
Sorry, no AI angle. It is for those who are a little nerdier on the space side, there is a real issue of the cluttering of, space, although it's actually quite empty, but the number of objects in space, can we track them all? Do we know what they are? Do we know I was reading this morning that there's some object that has a 1.3% chance of hitting the Earth and has the size to take out a small city. And, like, we don't know if it's gonna hit, and it's hard to find and track these things. We all watched Armageddon back in the '90s. I remember our early 2000s, I think. But so interesting space angles for the nerds out there, but no AI angle. So I just thought it was when it hit my AI newsletter feed, I was like, this is too much fun not to put in the podcast just for a little power clip.
I'm disappointed. I thought I was gonna hear a deep cut AI alien intersection from you, like a conspiracy theory. I thought maybe it was gonna
No
be brought in
conspiracy
here.
theory. I wish I could
Mm.
drive my car as fast as Spaceman's going around the Earth, though, like 17,000 miles an hour. Sounds like a fun loop.
It sounds like it might be hard on the stomach.
Might be hard on the stomach. Well, from Elon to Mark, Meta AI introducing personalized assistance this week. So there you go. Personalization in the Llama base, although I'm sure Mark is out there trying to copy R1 into his Llama model so they're cheaper to produce. But into your Facebook Meta assistant, we're going to get personalization in memory now.
Okay, so give us some details.
So the memory boost feature is going to remember things you say to people in one-on-one chats and your messages. Like when you say I'm a vegan and you ask for restaurant recommendations, it's going to go, hey, let's not give Annie the fogo de chao option with the unlimited beef here, the Brazilian barbecue. She's a vegan, and so going to try and use where you've been, who you've interacted with, things you said in kind of sort of a memory way to be able to change and personalize and kind of customize the way it responds to your future queries to you.
All right. So, I mean, people often have this sort of like concern about is Facebook watching me, tracking me, et cetera. What about the privacy issues with this? Right now, we're hearing they're going to be keeping track of sort of one-on-one direct messages and learning
Yeah.
about you from that.
This is always an interesting one to me. I would love your take on the privacy implications because whenever people go, I'm worried about Facebook and my privacy, I go, You did post these things on Facebook and you knew that they were keeping it because you wanted people to be able to see it. You don't want your messages to just vanish. You know that the message history is there. So I always kind of go, people go, Google reads your Gmail. I go, yeah, that's how Annie can read it when I send it to her, and how I can read it when she sends it to me is Google has it. So I think they're, going to have using data they have that you're already providing. They are going to give you the ability to see the things it's storing into memory. It's kind of not looking at everything. It's going to find tidbits through your messages or posts that things are useful and put them into a store of memory, much like ChatGPT does now, where it has a memory of things it knows about you. And then you'll be able to see what these memories that it's pulled out are and delete them or manage them. So you'll be able to kind of control what it knows about you and what it's using. But at the same time, if you really don't want Facebook to know stuff about you, I got very simple advice. Uh, don't put things on Facebook. That's or
I
Messenger.
think that's right. I think the important part here from the privacy standpoint is just somewhat the commitment to sort of transparency and user preferences. People are very interesting where you're right. Like they're posting all of this stuff about themselves on the internet and then later being surprised that it's available on the internet. And it's like, well, how do you think that it got there in the first place? But it just didn't occur to them that, it doesn't get deleted once you put something on the internet. So I do think it's important that they've added these features that allow people to sort of customize and unlearn in this type of stuff, and I think that'll be important for users, but yes, your point is well made. If
Sorry,
you
just
if you value your privacy that much, you wouldn't be putting all your stuff on blast on Facebook.
I'm not on Facebook or Instagram, not necessarily for privacy reasons, but a little bit for privacy reasons. But you gotta when you put it up there, they're going to use it. And to be fair to the companies, I think they use it in ways that if you've said I'm vegan in your posts or your friends, and then you don't get restaurant recommendations for steakhouses, like that seems like a way in which they've made the service that they're offering you better based on the data that you provided, which I feel like is a good thing. I mean, we should be encouraging that kind of innovation. So maybe I'll get some hate mail for that, but that's my rough take.
Fair enough. So what do you think are the broader lessons here about the space?
Yeah, you combine this with the R1 stories, and it tells me that the some of the winners in the AI race are likely to be those that have data they can do this with. So Facebook's got all of your posts, your messages, if you're a user of Facebook, and they can use that to make the product better. I've always thought Google was in a great position to give me the best personal assistant because I use Gmail, I use Google Calendar, I use Google Docs. All the data I might want to ask about is sitting there in Google. If you look at the enterprise area, Salesforce, right? They've got all this data from your business and how it's running and how your customers are, and how your sales cycle works, and how customer support works. Microsoft, all these companies that have large pools of data that you would want AI to operate upon to leverage in its responses, I think are in really great positions because it seems like the models are going to be kind of commoditized. There's going to be great models available from lots of places. So the people who have data that you need to make the models even more useful feel like they're in some of those powerful positions. And that'd be my bull case in the lesson. Kind of like look for when you're looking for the winners or the best providers, you're probably not looking at the best models so much as who has the best access to the most important sets of data.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think when ChatGPT first came out, people were really interested in using ChatGPT to get sort of generic information and do research and this type of stuff. But the more AI becomes mainstream, the more people want it to be personalized for them and useful for their use case. And so you don't want to go to a big thing that doesn't know anything about you that can just give you generic advice on things to think about. You want to go to the person or the AI source that has all of your information and can give you customized. It's the same as the education question, is how to make it highly personalized.
Yeah, I mean, I work hard to do that now sometimes where I'm going, "Hey, I wanna catch up for this meeting. Where can I find all the emails I've had with this person, the documents, the presentations?" And the answer is usually I've gotta export it from 5 services and dump it into ChatGPT or something to try and get an answer. And the more somebody finds a way to be the center of gravity for all that data I wanna ask about, not public data, but my data, the more valuable those tools are gonna be. Same for an enterprise, right? Like, wherever your data is, that's gonna be the most valuable thing, especially if the models become yeah, I mean, I honestly think if they took ChatGPT's interface and replaced the ChatGPT model with like Llama, I think 99% of users would have no idea that it was a different model underneath. They're not really there for 4.0 versus Sonnet 3.5 versus Llama, whatever. They're there because it's ChatGPT. And so that sense that the model is less important than the data it has to operate on, I think is very real and is going to be a powerful indicator of who does well in the next phase.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that there's a whole bunch of interesting stuff here to think about for the future about these questions about users controlling their data and how easy like, right now in certain fields, like or in certain industries in medicine and in banking, our data is very segregated, and there's these movements to like make the data ours so we can plug and play at other places. But there's way more valuable data about us beyond just medicine and our banking transactions, to your point. And Google has a bunch of it, Facebook has a bunch of it, right? And so should we be able to just unplug our data and then feed it into whatever source we want? It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
It will
So
indeed.
yeah. Well, speaking of highly customized use cases of ChatGPT, have you ever wanted ChatGPT in a box?
In a box.
In a
Sure, I'll take
box.
it. Pizza
All right,
box?
well, if you are, a US government agency, you now have a more sort of controlled environment and access to ChatGPT. So, ChatGPT actually launched, ChatGPT Gov, which is basically, it's a more secured, more locked down version even beyond just the ChatGPT Enterprise, so that government officials can actually use ChatGPT in a more safe environment, and they can use it to, ask a little bit, maybe spicier questions and get, access to the power of ChatGPT without, exposing, national security problems by the types of prompts they might be, entering.
Yeah, that's an interesting advancement. Are there is OpenAI seeing a lot of use in the government space? Like, it feels like an area that's maybe not the most prone to adopting the latest technologies rapidly. Is there a lot of usage already?
I would have guessed that there wouldn't be, but the numbers are surprisingly high. So ChatGPT has, or OpenAI has said that since 2024, more than 90,000 users in over 3,500 federal, state, and local government agencies have sent over 18 million messages in ChatGPT. So they're clearly already using it. But now they can use it in a little bit more safer way. And man, I really hope those people were using it responsibly and safely in terms of what their prompts were, but it's kind of hard to imagine, like, "Hey, ChatGPT, hypothetically, here's my, high significance question here." Now they can actually do it without so much cloak and dagger.
Fascinating. I was surprised that OpenAI got to this point this early. I mean, this is if you think about Microsoft or Amazon or Google, they've had kind of versions of their cloud run in kind of data centers specifically for the government so that there's access to sensitive information that doesn't leave that data center. I'm kind of surprised that OpenAI got to running ChatGPT in a specific data center for the government, kind of co-hosted. It makes sense. You want to put classified or sensitive information into the tool and get answers. You want it to be in a contained space, but it feels early in their life cycle for them to be there. So I guess somewhat kudos to them for investing in the space.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good, and I think it's a signal of, stuff we've talked about in the last few weeks about just the US needing to sort of be able to be a front runner in use of AI and development of AI, all this type of thing, and so, obviously having the government be able to use cutting edge tools is pretty important. On the same topic, Project Manhattan, I'm
I
assuming
do
you
know
saw
Manhattan Project.
Manhattan Project,
I
yeah.
saw both of the Barbenheimer movies. So I got the Manhattan Project and the Mojo Dojo Casa House in Barbie Land all in the same summer. It's fantastic.
Got it. So, yes, I also saw it. But so Manhattan Project, Los Alamos National Lab, they actually have a supercomputer, Venado supercomputer, that will also be powered by AI. So it's open up O1 Pro onto that sort of supercomputer so that scientists at that lab can actually use the O1 model in some of their research and development. So we're seeing a lot of AI partnership with the government.
I was really excited about this just because when you read the things Sam says or Dario Amode from Anthropic likes to talk. He put out a couple big posts the last week or two. But opening up the most powerful models for use by scientists, not just in like the chatbot way, but in the hey, we're working on nuclear energy would be near and dear to my heart, or nuclear proliferation of national security concerns. How do we get them? Not just the basic chatbot, but models that are being used for real hands-on science and hard physical problems. I think is a really exciting thing to be opening that up and partnering there. So I'm excited to see where that goes. But it's very cool that they're clearly a little bit of national pride and a little bit of national protectionism going on, but like investing in the government usage of these tools is really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, which tech titan has not been getting enough love recently?
Ooh, not enough love.
Not enough love.
Who might that be? I don't know. Who?
Jack Dorsey, poor guy, gets out
Who?
of Twitter. Elon buys it, big beard, earrings. Jack Dorsey's block just released Goose. I love the name, Maverick Goose. On machine local AI agent targeting engineering tasks, kind of from bug debugging to deployment to kind of real development. But I felt like I was kind of strange. I feel like, you got a lot of guys putting their stake in the AI landscape, and then Jack Dorsey, I think, felt left out. So here he comes, gonna release an AI agent right there, and name it Goose. Loved it.
All right. I agree with you. It's been a while since Jack Dorsey got some love, so you're right. I think I'll give that one to you. And we've joked in the past about poor naming conventions. I think he also wins on the naming convention on this one.
I think so. I mean, like 4001 R1 Llama 42B, whatever, like Goose.
Goose. Goose is good. All right, so tell me about how does Goose streamline engineering tasks?
So Goose is really interesting. It is an on-device agent capability, so you run it locally on your hardware. This R1 also is something where open source, you can download it and run it on, you know, $3,000 or $4,000 laptops, apparently enough to run R1. So pretty cool. See investment in locally runnable things. And it's really optimized to have multiple step processes from, let's say, debugging code, setting up an environment, running debugging code, making edits to the code, testing them out. Um, Couple of different things. Uses the model context protocol to allow it to call out to third-party services, and you can use whatever LLMs you want. So it's supporting a large variety of different large language models that you can use as the kind of underlying tool. So it's really a kind of an orchestration layer if you want an agent layer on top of different LLMs, and allowing you to kind of focus now on engineering. But I imagine this concept of an orchestration layer that's a smart agent that can call out to different tools and different models and allow you to kind of complete a more holistic task feels like a really interesting development. Not really in the AI development space per se, but adds a lot of value to the LLMs, I think, in very interesting ways. So interesting to see Block out there. I think of them as a fintech company, but here we go, getting into the pure AI development space.
Well, I know a pretty cool fintech company that's in the AI development space. They're not the first.
They're not the first. It was interesting to see them putting out just an AI development tool in this space. I thought, not a blockchain tool, renaming, of course, Square to Block for blockchain. I guess blockchain not as fun now as AI. So here we go, AI agent from Block.
Well, let's see, we talked about robots, we talked about all the developments this week
Education,
with R1, we talked about education.
lots of
We
stuff in
gotta
there.
end with creativity this week. So, can creativity still be truly human in a world powered by AI? That is the, question that the US Copyright Office is trying to answer and wrestle with, and really has been for quite a while. It's actually pretty fascinating and complex, question to answer, but so US Copyright Office came out this week. They have ruled that AI assisted works can be copyrighted, but only if they can showcase enough human creativity in the process. So you have to be able to see the humanity in order for it to be copyrightable, even if you were assisted by AI.
That is fascinating. I mean, we've talked about this topic a few times between the Beatles, and Adrian Brody and judging of the X Games. It feels like the borderline between AI assisted creation and creativity and humanity and awards is out there. What's your take on this? I mean, this is something that you've had a hot takes on almost all the topics in this space, and now we got a government agency weighing in on how creativity and AI interplay, in terms of copyright. What do you think of this?
I mean, I think this is the right stance to have. In all artistic works, there are tools that get made available, and those tools become increasingly sophisticated and complex. And obviously, AI is much more sophisticated and complex than any tool that has come before it in terms of what it can bring to that sort of creative process. But I think it's too blunt force of a decision to say, hey, if there's any AI involvement at all, then the creativity piece is lost because it's really how you humans use the tool that is part of the creativity that can be shown. So I like that they have come out and said, "Hey, as long as we can still see the human creativity as part of this, it's still a human powered work of art, and we'll copyright it, even if you were sort of assisted by AI." But some of the I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole reading about some things that have been submitted to them in terms of like, "Hey, I want to copyright this thing," and I'm like, that literally just looks like Google's whisk thing where you just took 2 pictures and you whisked it together, and then you honestly went and tried to get that copyrighted? That's nonsense. But, I guess,
Well, I imagine it's a tough line to. I mean, so much of copyright, is a difficult. I mean, it it seems simple and it's when you put it at a high level, and then you get down to a specific example and you go, you know, "Did I get 6 bullet points and shove it in ChatGPT to get this long article that I wanna, or did I, like, write it and get an editing draft, or did I write half of it and then I had a couple, like, where that line is, I think, becomes a pretty hard thing to distinguish and to understand. So I'll be curious how this plays out as they actually have to try and apply this standard to real cases.
oh, I think I don't envy the people who have that job because it seems very challenging to me, and it seems like it'll be a constantly moving target, and reasonable minds will disagree. So I'm interested to see how it is gonna play out, but it's entirely unclear.
Do we expect this perspective to be, copied internationally? I mean, the US kind of in copyright, not always. EU is going its own way in lots of regulatory ways these days. They used to stay more in lockstep, but now they've got their own agenda. But do we think this kind of standard is something that's likely to be adopted more broadly than just in the US, or is this gonna be, something where people come at their own time?
I mean, I assume that it's something that'll be adopted more broadly only because when there's hard questions like this, whoever is the first to sort of wrestle with and answer the question, it becomes somewhat of a precedent. And so other countries that are trying to answer the same question are going to look to that precedent and they're going to decide like how do we feel about that relative to the things that we're seeing. So at the very least, it's a precedent that's gonna be reviewed as other people are struggling with the same type of question.
If they're smart, they might wait until they see how it plays out in real life, and they'll let the U.S. Copyright Office struggle with a few of these difficult cases and maybe clarify, refine, expand upon the standards from a little experience before they try and copy it. But certainly interesting to see us putting a stake in the ground early as a U.S. on how that works. And I agree with you. It's it's a tool. I mean, does CGI change the nature of the creative work when we do it that way? I think it's still a very creative human endeavor and deserving of copyright. And so the idea that broadly AI tools would not be would ban you from copyrightability seems silly. But it will be interesting to see the details and how it plays out because it will be a hard line to draw exactly how much creativity and how much AI in any given piece of art.
And also how much creativity is human. That is in itself a hard question. Like, how do you look at the end work and attribute X percentage to the human versus the AI? Like, that's a hard thing to judge.
I want to ask you this because this has always struck me when I hear lots of creatives talking about how AI can never take their, there's some purely human element to creativity. AI just remixes two things that have gone before. And I kind of think, isn't a lot of creativity like, I mean, we all learn from things that have gone before, and there is some element of creativity that is like, yeah, I learned from the masters that did this and that did this and that did this. And then I did my own thing, but it was drawing from all these other things, which is kind of what they're accusing AI of doing, of stealing. So the element of I'll be really interested to see if we think AI can really be creative because remixing is not an uncreative act. And just because we're remixing things that went before doesn't mean there's no creativity in it. And so that I think that line may be harder and harder to draw the purely human, truly creative versus the remixability that AI kind of brings to the forefront. I, I've always thought that that was not as clear a delineation as people would like to think in terms of humans having a truly generative, brand new idea versus remixing things that have come before in new ways.
I could not agree more. I don't think that there's any creative genius out there that has not studied previous creative geniuses and drawn on inspiration from things that they've seen in the past and then used that to shape and influence their future. So, that's why you have so much like Ed Sheeran getting in trouble for thinking out loud, and you have uh, Marvin Gaye's estate coming after people, right? Because people draw on their inspiration from works that have come before them, and that's just how it works. That's how the creative process works.
Well, I guess we'll have to just keep watching the creative process evolve as well as the copyright's response to it. Should make for interesting conversation in the future.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you, Jeff. I hope you have a great weekend.
Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you next week, Annie.
I hope you get rich.
That's right. Gong Shi Fat Zai. Ready to expand your AI knowledge? Want to become the go-to AI expert in your organization? Take the next step with Upstart's AI certification for financial services. This comprehensive course simplifies the fundamentals of artificial intelligence for financial services professionals. Both the course and this podcast are brought to you by Upstart, whose leading AI lending marketplace connects millions of consumers to banks and credit unions that leverage Upstart's AI technology to deliver superior credit products, from personal loans to auto loans to home equity lines of credit. If you learned something useful this week, hit subscribe on YouTube or leave us a rating on iTunes or Spotify. Your support can help others discover What the AI. And finally, share your biggest AI questions and insights with us at email@whattheai.fm. We really do read every message, and we do our best to cover them all on the show.